Hey, welcome to 12 Tone. As a music theorist, I spend a lot of time thinking about why people like particular songs. What is it about those compositions that makes them enjoyable? What do people like hearing? It's a lot of work and we've been trying to figure it out for centuries, but wouldn't it be easier to just, ask? That was the idea behind The People's Choice. No, not the award show. The album. This was the work of Dave Soldier, Vitaly Komar, and Alexander Melamid. Komar and Melamid are painters who, in 1995, began to experiment with creating paintings based on public opinion polls. They'd conduct surveys in different countries to find out what people liked most in paintings, asking about things like people's favorite colors, favorite styles, and whether they preferred people or landscapes. Once they had that data, they used it to create what they called the most wanted painting for that country, which contained all the things that people said they liked, making it, in theory, the most popular painting possible in that country. The United States, for instance, got an outdoor scene of a lake featuring George Washington, some children, and a couple deer. As a control, they also created a most unwanted painting, which was designed to feature as many unpopular elements as it could, which for a lot of countries apparently means just a bunch of colored squares. Soldier, on the other hand, is a neuroscientist and composer who joined forces with Komar and Melamid in 1996 to expand their ideas to the world of music. He put together a survey with questions like, what are your favorite instruments, what tempo do you prefer, and what are you looking for when you listen to music? If you're curious, the entire survey is linked in the description. It's fairly in-depth and covers pretty much every compositional element you'd expect a non-musician to have opinions on. It doesn't ask about scales, chords, or anything like that, but it uses other questions about emotions and styles to try to tease out those connections as well. They surveyed around 500 people and used that data to construct a model of the most wanted song, and unsurprisingly, it turns out it looked quite a bit like the popular music of the time. It consisted of a moderately sized orchestra with 3 to 10 instruments, including guitar, piano, and saxophone, with a medium tempo, moderate to loud volume, and lyrics about love. They decided to feature both male and female vocals, each singing in one of the 2 most popular vocal styles, rock and R&B. As for the words, lyricist Nina Menken described it as what she would imagine a duet between Whitney Houston and Bruce Springsteen would have sounded like. Using their statistical models, Komar, Melamid, and Soldier concluded that combining all the popular elements from their survey, and I'm quoting here, even to the point of sensory overload and stylistic discohesion, will result in a musical work that will be unavoidably and uncontrollably liked by 72 plus or minus 12% of listeners. That is, assuming their survey represented the population at large, and assuming that there were no hidden dependencies between various preferences, a significant majority of people would wind up liking any song that had those elements, regardless of its compositional merit. So, how'd they do? Well, there's a link in the description, and it's okay. It's certainly not bad. There's a couple weird parts, and the Bruce Springsteen impression feels pretty out of place to me, but mostly it's just utterly inoffensive. It sounds like, for lack of a better word, elevator music. It's trying to please everyone, and it's not taking any risks in doing so, which means that while it's probably not going to bother many people, it's also not likely to be anyone's favorite song. And that's the point. It's a messy amalgamation of pop cliches designed more to reflect on the musical preferences of the era than to make any statement of its own. In short, it's not trying to be good. It's just trying to be wanted. But any good scientist will tell you that every study needs a control, so to prove that their methods were valid, they also used it to create the most unwanted song, a piece of music combining everything that people said they didn't want. The orchestra is much larger, featuring accordions and bagpipes, the 2 most unpopular instruments in the survey, along with a banjo, a tuba, a flute, which personally I love the sound of, and a synthesizer, which had the distinction of being the only instrument featured in both the least and most popular lists. Apparently, people in the 90s had very strong opinions about synthesizers. The song is also a stylistic nightmare, featuring an operatic soprano rapping about cowboys, as well as a group of children singing about Christmas, Ramadan, and Walmart. Plus, it features some outright atonal sections where various unpleasant instruments just play seemingly random notes on top of each other. The whole thing is over 20 minutes long, with sudden, unprepared shifts in style, tempo, and volume. In fact, the transitions are so abrupt sometimes that I think it's a stretch to call the whole thing one song. But either way, it's pretty clear that it's not going to be popular. In fact, the artists concluded that with the same statistical assumptions as earlier, the song would be genuinely enjoyed by a total of less than 200 people worldwide. If you want to find out if you're one of those 200, there's a link to this one in the description too. Of course, while Komar, Melamid, and Soldier often discuss the project in terms of statistics, democracy, science, and philosophy, it's worth recognizing that at its heart, it's largely a work of satire. Whether it's a commentary on popular music, polling, democracy, or science in general, the entire thing is clearly a bit tongue-in-cheek, and it's probably worth taking their claims with a grain of salt. It's not a joke exactly, but it's also not quite serious either. They're having fun and making art, but along the way they're also teaching us a little bit more about how music works, and if nothing else, that's pretty cool. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks to our Patreon patrons for supporting us and making these videos possible. If you want to help out and get some sweet perks like sneak peeks of upcoming episodes, there's a link to our Patreon on screen now. You can also join our mailing list to find out about new episodes, like, share, comment, subscribe, and above all, keep on rockin'.